Hello and welcome to Raytown Redneck Outdoors. Today we will be going over knife safety because, I know a lot of people who have been injured by knives, but that's only because they have been used incorrectly and, so yeah. A little bit of caution before I actually go into it. Knives are obviously very sharp and not to be treated as toys, because that is one way to injure yourself, is if you're playing carelessly with knives. So, now I will go on to explaining a couple different types of knives. First I'd like to start off by going through pocket knives because, they're more common and a lot of people like to carry them, including myself. Personally, I have a rule, and anybody who's watched the show NCIS knows the rule. Rule number 9. Sorry to be a geek, but I want to do that. I want to mention that one. Never go anywhere without a knife. A couple exceptions being airport, schools, anywhere where it is strictly forbidden to carry a knife of any sort. So, like I said, first thing I'll go into is different types of knives. First, I'll go through pocket knives. You got this type of knife where the lock is on the front. Personally, I do not like knives that do not have locks because, say you're doing something and you have to press that way. That is a good way to get hurt, is if you do not have a knife with some sort of locking mechanism on it, if it's a folding knife. This type of knife, you press right here, you press to the side, you get your thumb out of the way, then boom, you close it. Well, to open it, this one has like a little thumb hole that you just push open. I like this knife because it has a serrated edge on it. It's good for, cutting random stuff open, because different knives have different uses, as anybody who knows anything about knives, kind of like different types of guns have different uses. Like 9mm Glock, you wouldn't use that for hunting because that's too small of a round, or a 22 rifle, you wouldn't use that for killing a bear because it will cause injury more than anything else. But with that, knives, unless it's completely needed, you should never use a knife in aggression or as a way of hurting someone unless they are trying to hurt you. Okay, so the next type of knife is also a pocket knife. I like this knife because it's smaller and it's, you'll see that the blade itself is a little thicker. I like to use this one as a personal self-defense when I'm not carrying my larger knife, which I'll show you here in a bit. This type has a lock on the back. You just press that down and boom. See, you hear that click noise, that means that the lock is engaged. This is a little cheap knife. Something you'll notice about this knife compared to the other one, it doesn't have that little hole. Has like a little knob on the side. You just put your thumb on it and do that. You don't have to do the little flick because, I just like doing the flick because, a little faster deployment. When you're closing a knife, never wrap your hand around it, because if you're closing it and it automatically really fast, it will cause injury. This is just a straight blade. It does not have any serrades, so I wouldn't use this one to cut open a package unless it was really needed. This knife isn't the sharpest knife, nor is it the best because the steel itself is not very good. Personally, not trying to sound racist or biased. Actually, I am very biased, not in a racial way, but I don't like knives made in China. I believe that this one is actually made in China, but oh wait, yeah, it's made in China. It's a little cheap knife that I got at a scout outing, or at scout camp actually. because there's a little store by the camp. Anyways, so for this one, you just press the little thing down right here, then you, boom, it's closed. My next knife that I like to keep with me, I don't like carry it with me all the time, is my fixed blade. It's a sheath knife. This type of knife is, fixed blade is good for a lot of things. I like to carry it outside of scouting because according to the Boy Scouts of America, a fixed blade should not be carried by a Boy Scout. I like to disagree just for the fact that, you know, fixed blades compared to this knife, here, compare size. Okay, with size you get weight. With weight you get the ability to chop. Say I don't have a hatchet. Here in a sec, I'll make another segment on this video about my hatchet, which I like to use for, you know, splitting wood or cutting stuff, or cutting wood. You don't use it for, you know, normal knife purposes. I also carry this one as protection. One problem with sheath knives is you cannot conceal them just for the fact that, you know, it's against the law because it's a long enough blade. As you can see, compared to my head, it is a fairly large knife. I mean, it's huge. Anyway, so with this one, unlike the other two knives that I have shown you, the sheath, it has a sheath on it, which instead of like flicking it out, you just pull it out. Boom. This is one of my favorite knives. It's a Smith & Wesson. It's made in the United States. It has a rubberized grip, and like I said, it's good for like cutting, like chopping stuff. So yeah, it's also long enough to where it can be used as a self-defense weapon. Say somebody's coming at me, I can, you know, do that. The next type of knife is one that, you know, if you don't have in your household, then something is going wacko because you don't cook, and, you know, personally, I like a home-cooked meal, meaning you have to use one of these knives. It's a kitchen knife. Well, you know, there's several different types of kitchen knives, same as any other knife, and I don't know why I'm flicking this around, it's actually kind of scaring me. This belongs to the owner of the house that I'm house-sitting currently, so I will put this back in its rightful spot once I'm done with this video. This type of knife you would use for like cutting meat or something like that. You keep these types of knives in your kitchen, obviously, because it's a kitchen knife. Couple safety pointers that I should go over is, here, I'll pull out this knife again, is when you're cutting, never cut towards yourself, because say you're whittling or cutting a rope. You never cut towards yourself because say the knife breaks loose, it can, you know, it can cause some serious damage, and it is not okay to stab yourself. Another safety tip, you know, people probably wouldn't consider it safety, but it is a very safety thing, is always keep your knives sharp. You know, always keep them well maintained. You know, good term to live by if you like knives is a sharp knife will cut you less than a dull knife. Why, you ask? Well, first of all, you won't get any snags on anything you're cutting. It'll cut more smooth, so you won't go, ah, and like stab someone. Or you won't. Another thing is a clean cut due to a sharp knife is easier to be healed than a cut from a dull knife, because a cut from a sharp knife, it will be, you know, smooth. It won't it won't tear skin. It will cut. A couple other safety tips. I'm sorry if I'm looking out of the camera. I'm also looking at some notes that I took before I wrote this so I wouldn't forget what I'm saying. Is never drop your knife with intention to catch it, because you can cut your hand open and that would be no good. Don't drop your knife, just don't be like, because that's one good way to break your knife. It doesn't matter how good your steel is. If you drop your knife and it is going to, with the intention to stick it into something that could possibly break it or dull the tip of it, which is not okay. You know, I say it's not okay to a lot of things. Never run with a knife, kind of like scissors. I mean, if you've never been told not to run with scissors as a kid, then you've never been through preschool. Never throw a knife. Why? Same reason as don't drop the knife. But throwing a knife, you could possibly injure someone. Like, never here, have my knife. Even if it is, in its sheath, the sheath can come off and it can cause injury. If it's a pocket knife, it can come open and possibly injure them. When you're handing a knife to someone, if it's not in a sheath, if it's not in a sheath or not, always hand it to them with the handle pointing towards them. You may be thinking, oh, what if they what if they lunge at you? Chances of that is very dull. And if you're afraid of that happening, just don't hand it to them. A good rule that they teach you in scouting is make sure they say thank you before you let go of the knife. That way you know that they are acknowledging that they have it securely in their hand. I don't like handing a knife to someone without the sheath on. I mean, I'm afraid that I'm going to cut myself just doing that. Just showing you guys. And make sure when you're putting a knife in its sheath, always pay attention, because say it's on your side the way that this one is made, you could possibly stab yourself, and that would cause great injury. Never point a knife at someone. Never be like, yeah, I'm big, bad, and tough. Sorry to be a dork about that, but, it has to be said. Let's see. Always keep your knife in its sheath or folded or wherever a safe place is when you're not using it. Otherwise, you can, say you keep your knife in a glove box or side pocket of your truck, as I like to keep mine. But anyways, always make sure that you keep it in its sheath or folded. Otherwise, you could be digging through your glove box and cut your hand open. You don't want that to happen, because then that'll be a hospital trip, just like a lot of other problems that you'll run into with knives. Let's see. When using a sharpening stone, don't power, or don't, try to put all your energy into it. Don't press down. Just let the knife or let the stone do the work. If you're using a grinder, make sure it's a quality grinder. Don't get a cheap little piece of trash, because that could possibly not give you as sharp of a sharpening as you can. A lot of sharpening stones or grinders have two sides, one or two settings. My dad has one that has several settings, but I'll talk about that once I'm done. One side, and make sure you know which side it is, will give you a coarse grinding or sharpening, and that's just to knock off the burrs on it, or just give you a general general sharpening. It'll get you to the point where it's sharp enough. Then there's another side, which is known as the fine side, which will give you that razor edge. And if you're good at doing it, then you'll get a really, really good sharpening. Use the right tool for the job. Don't use this one to hack a limb off, or a stick. These types of knives are good for opening stuff. Whittling, which means you take a stick and you sharpen the end. Say you're wanting to roast marshmallows over a fire or roast hot dogs over a fire. You always get like a sharpened tip on it. Well, that's what you'd use that type of knife for. You wouldn't use a machete. On that camp out that we were on, I had a machete with me. I would show you it, but once again, it's at home, and I'm not at home. Anyways, he tried to use that, and he cut himself. And yeah, I told him not to. I told him repeatedly, do not do it. Okay, let's see. Don't use a knife for prying. I learned that one the hard way because several years back, the first knife my parents ever bought me, it was really good, Buck 110, if you know anything about those. Sorry about my voice cracking. I was shooting archery, me shooting archery, and I hit a hard piece of wood, and the arrow would not come out. So I tried using my knife to pry it out, like they show you, or like they show, like prying bullets out of drywall on, like CSI or something like that. Don't do that because you will break the tip off like I did, and I don't know where that knife is. I'm pretty sure my dad has it, but I tried to get it fixed. Tried to get a new tip, or grind it down to where the tip is there, but the people who do that type of stuff told me it's not going to work. So I'm down a very, very good knife, which, that knife was really good for field dressing deer. Yeah, that's another thing. Don't use this knife. If you ever kill a deer, don't use this one to cut it open and gut it. I wouldn't really even say this one because the serrated edge would make it a little harder because it's harder to sharpen a serrated edge, and they're more for like somewhat sawing but not like sawing wood. I'd say use a knife more like this, but use a sharp one because once again it's going to be a lot easier and more convenient for you. Never use a knife on a electrical object. Say I'm doing work around the house, and well, not this house because this isn't mine, and I'm doing electrical work like cutting wires and stuff. Don't use your knife on it if there's an electrical connection, because that is a good way to electrocute yourself or shock yourself, and that is no good. Keep your knife clean, particularly the locking mechanism. One thing I do every time I'm not saying I use this knife. One thing I always do after I get done, cleaning a deer, is I wash the blood off, because if you get blood or any type of grit in here, it'll make it harder to open, and could quite possibly cause it to where it won't open, like rust and stuff like that. When cleaning your knife, never use soap, because that causes rust, and you don't want a rusty knife, because once again, if you cut yourself with a rusty knife, you'll have to go to the hospital, and you'll have to have several shots. It's kind of like stepping on a nail. You always have to get like a tetanus shot after that. It's the same thing. Always keep it sharpened. If you get cut, get first aid. First aid for a cut would be, if it were a minor cut, Band-Aid and some Neosporin, or whatever you want to use to clean it. I like Neosporin. If you're using or if it's a deep gash or laceration, apply pressure to the wound and seek immediate medical attention. Go to an ER. Don't try to just say, oh, it's okay. One thing that I'm going to stress, because it's a problem among a lot of teenagers, is never use a knife to cut yourself, because that is, I'm going to stress that because I know of people who do that, and cutting yourself is not the right thing to do if you're in a stressful situation. Seek help from somebody who can help, a therapist, a friend, anybody. So with that, I'm going to go get that hatchet I was telling you about, and I'll explain a little bit on that. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I have the hatchet that I was telling you about. You know, I don't like carrying the hatchet with me, but the camp out that I went on a couple weeks ago, I put it behind my seat, and I forgot it was back there. Always make sure you know, don't be like me. Don't like get home and just unload everything that's in the bed of your truck or in plain sight. Make sure you check your vehicle over, because it can cause very serious reprimandations. This is a hatchet. You know, it isn't a tomahawk. It isn't like what you see Native Americans carrying in Wild West movies. This is meant for chopping wood. I would not use this for, you know, whittling. When you're carrying a sharp object, I should say, you know, these axes, knives, always carry it with the sharp side away from you. And one thing I like to do when I'm carrying a hatchet is I like to carry it by the head, compared to a knife where you carry it by the handle, because that's what handles are for. Compared to this, where you have a large, heavy, swinging object which can cause damage to other people. One thing I forgot to mention when I was doing my last bit was the blood circle. You know, another thing that they stress in scouting is when you're cutting anything, make sure you have a good perimeter around you, and make sure nobody is directly in front of you. So what you do is you hold it by the blade. You know, I like using, I mean, you don't like grasp your hand around it because you can cut yourself. And you don't hold it out like that, because like when you're measuring your blood circle, that's one good way to cut someone. And the last thing you want is somebody getting cut, which is the point of a blood circle. So anyways, you take it by the blade, you hold it out, and you go all the way around you. I don't care if you have to go in back, you have to reach in back of you. Never, ever cut with somebody inside your blood circle, because that is a good way to get somebody hurt or killed. So, once again, always be careful with knives. Never use them incorrectly, because that is one way to get hurt or killed. I'm telling you, knives can be some serious stuff and can hurt or kill someone if used incorrectly. And the last thing you want is to get hurt or hurt someone else. So, right now, this is Raytown Redneck Outdoors. Have a very nice day. See you.